Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for a live reaction and player ratings live stream following Chelsea 2, Bournemouth 0. And if it wasn't for one of the most incompetent referees I think I've ever laid my eyes upon, should have been 3, 4, 5, God knows what. But, you know, I'm not going to let the second half being a bit more dull, especially after Reece James getting injured. I'm not going to let that ruin my mood. I'm not even going to let Reece James being injured ruin my mood. Because... And I want people to be held accountable. Every single soul under the sun, no, not every single soul under the sun, but a lot of people, way too many people, spent the entirety of the World Cup sitting there on Twitter, moaning, crying, saying we're shit, Potter's shit, all our players are shit. Well, look at us. I know it's Bournemouth, and I know it was only like a half and a bit that we were actually really good in. But, all right, let's not get too held up with the details. We actually played some good football. We looked like a team that can actually play good football. It looked like a good team. You know, we scored some nice goals. We played some good football. We pressed properly. You know, it was just wonderful. It was just, I was a huge fan. Honestly, I was absolutely over the moon. Reece James kind of had to ruin it. Obviously not his fault, but he kind of had to ruin it. Yeah, Reece James picked up an injury. We'll get into that in more detail in just a little bit of time. But let me first of all introduce my wonderful guests. Pys, thank you for being back on. You were here yesterday. You're back again today. Obviously, Reece in the second half, obviously after he got injured, people will say it's just because Reece came off. I think it's less directly just, okay, Reece James wasn't there. I think it's just the team is psychologically also affected when their teammate gets injured again after just coming back. I think it's not just, okay, we lost the quality of Reece James. I think just the whole injury thing that will take some sting out of our whole performance and obviously gives Bournemouth a little bit of like, okay, maybe we could do something. I think that anyway. But I was so happy with the first half and say until Reece got injured, it was phenomenal. Like, do you think I'm being overly excited, or were you as happy and excited about it as I was?
I was happy and excited about the first half. I think we played great in the first half. I think we was really good. Second half was a bit more sort of laboured. You know, we was never really threatened, to be quite honest with you, but you know, I tweeted out the times where, you know, Bournemouth did go forward and did get a cross in or whatever. Thiago Silva was just there every single time. He had more clearances than any other player on the pitch. So when he's at the back, I just don't have much worries, to be honest with you, a lot of the time, unless someone else makes a mistake and he can't do anything about it. So, yeah, no, I think, you know, Bournemouth had a header at the end. That was about their best chance. They had a shot where they played it wide and had a shot. Kepa did quite well to save it. But yeah, I mean, happy as you can be. It's Bournemouth, it's one game, but we did play well. We didn't drop points. That's what we need to do. We need to win. And the goals we did score, I will say, were not scrappy goals. They were great goals. Mount's was a great goal. Havertz is one that was great play from Sterling into Havertz. So, you know, you can be happy for tonight, and hopefully, I mean, I listened to Havertz's interview. He said, you know, look, it's good to win, but we got to keep this up. That's the exact mentality we need, because you know, if we lose on Sunday or drop points on Sunday against Nottingham Forest away, people can be like, oh well, it's only Bournemouth. You know, we beat Bournemouth. Who cares? Now it's Chelsea back, sort of thing. So yeah, look, let's win on Sunday as well, please, and then I'll be extra happy.
No, exactly that. And to get to my second wonderful guest of the night, Bertram, thank you for being back on. Similar question to you, really. Were you as happy as I was? Again, obviously, we'll talk in more detail about how it tailed off more and more as the second half went on. But that was some good football. Now, someone in the chat said some of the best football we've played in a Graham Potter. Probably somewhere on par with the Milan and the Wolves games. But it was just good. Like, it was just enjoyable. And after obviously 6 weeks out, and you know, going into the World Cup, or more than 6 weeks, but going into the World Cup on 3 defeats, which is just not a thing that we're used to as Chelsea fans, right? So to you know, come back this way, actually play some good football, really nice, right?
Yes, thank you for having me on as well. Absolute pleasure to come on and talk after we've won. You know, I think it's a pleasure. I think we deserve it, to be honest, as fans. You know, having to go on a 6-week break, being on, you know, the worst streak this club has been in since like 1998, when we lost 4 games in the league in a row. I think we deserve some happiness, to be honest with you. I think I don't really buy into the mantra that, you know, it's only Bournemouth. I think the position we're in as a club right now and as a team, I think a win against Bournemouth is perfectly feasible and something we need. And as you said, I think we played some brilliant stuff in the first half. I think when the Mount shot hit the back of the net was one of the happiest moments I've had in in 1.5 months, and it's been Christmas since then, so it says a lot. But I think we played well. I think we deserve it. Reece James does put a dampener on it, but I'm excited to see how we build on this. I'm excited to see our reaction on the 1st of January against Nottingham. But yeah, I think a lot of positives, and I think we have to enjoy these next couple of days because we as fans and the team as well, we deserve it.
I agree. I could not agree more. You know what? So we then, after that, can at least focus on the more positives. Let's start it off by talking about the Reece James injury. Let me quickly get up the quote by Graham Potter on Reece James, which I can't lie, doesn't sound amazing, but, let's not jump to conclusions too soon. As he says, not too much of an update as of now. We will have to see in the next 24 to 48 hours. Disappointed to lose him as quickly as we did. It was just a very strange situation to me, the whole thing. Like, he was playing. Pys, you told me that he asked to be subbed off like 2 minutes earlier, which I didn't see, but is fair enough. Like, I always expected him to play about an hour, and that was just before the hour mark, so not too surprising. Obviously, we don't know why he asked to be subbed off. Like, was he just, okay, I'm just too tired and, I need to break it up and play football in too long, or was he feeling his knee? I don't know what the situation was, but then there was this little duel with some Bournemouth player. He kept the ball. Referee gives him a free kick. And then he signals again to the bench that he wants to come off or needs to come off. And then he lies down and then puts his hands over his head, like looks devastated. And I was like, how's this happened? You were fine 2 seconds ago. How are you so severely injured now that you need to have your hand over your head and look really depressed? Like, why? What happened? And yeah, I mean, a lot of people in the chat having arguments back and forth now whether Reece James injury prone. Now, Reece James is most certainly injury prone. That if you don't believe that, then you live in some sort of, I don't know, behind the moon or some shit, because he's obviously injury prone. He's had a relatively serious injury literally every single season for his professional career, even at Wigan. So obviously he has some tendencies to get injured. There's different levels of being injury prone, but he certainly is a bit of injury prone, right? Like, if you're denying that, I don't know what kind of world you live in. But it's frustrating. I do want to talk about, the question of, was he rushed back? And I want to ask that question to both of you guys, because obviously we don't know. None of us can sit here and actually claim to know. We can only judge by what we do know, right? And that's the information that the club gives us, or that we hear through journalists and whatever else. He played 65 minutes or more than he played tonight in the friendly behind closed doors against Brentford less than a week ago. Actually, a bit more than a week ago, but still, about a week ago. So I'm not really sure if you can just say, oh, he was just rushed back. Like, as much as on the one hand, I do want to sit here and just, blame someone, because it's just difficult to accept that Reece being injured so regularly and so often is an issue. But I don't know. Like, I do have a problem with the fact that we let go of our head physio or the head of medical department of 15 or 17 years. And as far as the public is aware, did not replace him yet. When we replaced literally every single other person at the club, which, I find that a bit weird. But surely still the people we have employed at the club would know enough about injuries to not let him play and start after this kind of situation where he was so long without football. Let's not forget, guys, Reece James wanted to be at the World Cup and was annoyed that Gareth Southgate didn't pick him because he thought he could be fit by the time we get to the knockouts. We're so long since the knockouts of the World Cup began. You can't just sit here and say we rushed him back. He played 65 minutes in the friendly and was perfectly fine. And still perfectly fine to start him today. So, you can't, footballers come and, but, how do you sit here and say, oh, rush back? But how do you know that if we waited another 2 weeks to play him, that the same thing doesn't happen? You don't know that. Okay, I don't know it either, and it doesn't happen. Absolutely true. But I'm sure the doctors made the best call that they could, where it made the most sense that he can play and is fit to play. So, surely, right? Pys, what is your opinion on that situation? Do you feel it as a case of being rushed back? I don't know. If you play 65 minutes in a friendly, it doesn't sound like rushing back to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. My initial reaction was to say it was rushed back, but I
but
think
initial reaction doesn't count. That's fair enough. I think we're all gutted that he got injured.
I think with the friendly, it's yeah, he played 60 minutes, but what, that would have not even been anywhere close to the intensity I'd imagine is tonight. So I mean, I don't know. We sat here yesterday saying, if he's ready to play, playing for 60, then sub him off. Um, I guess we'll have to say more, think about this question more. If it's like, another few weeks out, like for fun. If it's just, he like, caught it when he went in for that tackle with a player. I mean, what can you do? It's not really anyone's fault then, is it? Like, you've got to go in for tackles. Like, so I don't know what to say really. The only thing I do 100% agree on is like not replacing the head of physio. And people were replying to me when I replied to someone like, we should be playing him in Bowley because he's got rid of him and didn't replace him. Like, make some changes to the medical staff. Everyone was like, "Are you dumb? Like, this is the same physio that we've had all these injuries into. Why does it matter anyway?" Like, for me, it's not the point. Like, you don't get rid of someone and then just not replace them. Like,
exactly.
I don't get it. But
it's just a weird thing, like especially when you consider how many other positions in the club have been replaced. Right, we even made up all sorts of new job roles just to put some new people in place, right? Literally. And now we can't have a new head of medical department. What?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're taking more time to find the right guy, but look, to be honest, I don't know. We need to say we need to figure out these injuries, but like, what can you do? Half of them are impact, and half of them are just like muscle pulls. So it's like, who do you really blame for this? Like, if there's usually if there's too many muscle pulls, you'd say, right, well, maybe they're training too hard, but they've like everyone's been away, so most people have been away, so it's like, exactly. Yeah, I don't really know who or what to blame. Like, we'll just have to see how bad it is.
I mean, Thebe says it here in the chat. Not re-screwed us is maybe a bit harsh of a way to word it, but he's been literally training for a month. Like, how much longer do you want players to? He was out for 2 months or 2.5 months and trained for a month. Like, how long do you think people need to train after an injury? Like, no one would be saying this if he didn't get injured. Now, obviously, if he didn't get injured, there wouldn't be that argument to make. But I don't know, Bertram, but what is your opinion on this? Like, do you see it as a case of being rushed back? Obviously, like Pi said, obviously we need to find out what the actual extent of the injury is and how it happened to actually have a real opinion of, is it rushed back or is it not? But again, they will do scans, they will check the knee, they will do all sorts of like fitness tests and like stress tests to see if the knee is ready or not. And if he passes every test, then of course he's going to play, right?
We were thinking that David Datro Fofana and Badiashile would be some of the best signings we could make in the winter transfer window. Turns out it's going to be Eva Carnero, hopefully. As you've alluded to, I think we have to place some faith in the competency of the staff we have at the club as well, because I think to an extent you'd need some medical knowledge, but if you're in the changing room, he went off at like, what was it, 50 minutes? I think if there was a broader problem, he would have probably mentioned it during halftime as well. So to me, the way I see it, I think this was a really unlucky circumstances, a really unlucky situation to be put in. I wouldn't place too much in it as of right now because we don't know what it's about. It could just be that he has trained for too much or he hasn't trained too much. But as you've said before, he has trained. He should be match fit. The scans have been made. So I think right now we're just in a situation where it's very unlucky to lose one of our best players. And I also think it's been adding up, both that Reece James has been injured, that he is our most valuable player, and that our medical staff is under scrutiny, or maybe isn't even there.
And also the fact that literally the same thing happened to Fofana just in the friendly. Obviously, coming back picks up an injury.
Exactly.
Right.
So you are wondering what the competency of the medical staff we have is right now. But I think we can speculate all we want about it. I think it's just really unlucky, if I'm honest. Which I thought we were good up to that point, and I'm disappointed of the fact that it's taken the momentum out of not just this game, but from forward as well. So those are my initial thoughts on Reece James. I hope to see him back soon. But I think I've seen a lot of people put a lot of thought into his reaction. I think that's quite a standard reaction if you're going off. I don't think you can see like, oh, he knows it's 7 months out from that reaction. I think he's just got it to be going off in his debut. And I'm not sure. Did we have Pice? Maybe that if the banner was thrown around today.
No, I didn't see it. I was looking
Yeah,
for it.
true. I didn't see it either, actually.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I don't know.
Because if you'd seen that and waited and I think if you're an injured player and you're seeing your national team play football, it's the only thing you want to come back. So I think that's it for the reaction. But unfortunate, and I hope to see him back soon.
Absolutely. We can only cross our fingers and hope it's nothing too serious. Maybe we will find out he's going to miss the Forest game and then he's going to be back after that and everything's fine. We can remain positive before we know for a fact that we have to be negative. But enough talk about the Reece James injury. Let's focus on the positives. Let's focus on the fact that Chelsea won a game of football, which we haven't been able to say in way too long. Also, tactically, I thought we were very, very interesting today because I would say the main lineup was a 4-2-3-1 as I have it on screen now. But in build-up, we kind of built in a back three with Cucurella kind of as a left-sided centre-back. And only once we got into the final third did we steam up the pitch and get involved there and then push it back into a back four. When we had certain positions on the pitch, like when we were more in the central field, Mount pushed out here and we had a 4-3-3. And then it pushed, obviously, when we got into the final third, Mount pushed to the central areas again and we created the 4-2-3-1 again. Big fan of the tactical flexibility without making us, what's the right word I'm looking for? Without, because when you're shifting all the time, it's easy to have gaps in those moments of shifting. But we didn't. And it seemed like everyone understood how we were trying to shift it around. And I'm a big fan. And it worked. So obviously I'm a big fan. If we did the same thing and lost, I'd probably not be a big fan. But hey, we won. And I would say partly because the tactics were spot on today and worked out brilliantly. But let's start with actually talking about the lineup itself. Were you guys happy when you saw the lineup? Because we've sat here many times, whether it's Thomas Tuchel in charge or Potter in charge, and when the lineup is released, we're like, what the flip is that again? Like Pys, yesterday in the preview, we were like, yeah, it's probably going to be Aubameyang on the wing and Havertz up front, and it's going to be all miserable again. But actually, I was surprised that Zakaria started. I didn't necessarily expect it, but I was pretty happy with the team. Were you?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised with Zakaria, to be honest with you, or Zakaria. I don't actually still know how you say that, but yeah, I always say Zakaria. So yeah, I was a little bit surprised. But the rest of the team, I was like, wow, like it made me want to watch it. I can't lie. Like there's not been many times this season that I've thought that about Chelsea. I was like, yeah, this is going to be good. We're going to be attacking. We're definitely playing in a four at the back. You've got Pulisic, who I was just really excited to see. I wanted him to start. Havertz and or Aubameyang, like who really cares at this point? But good that Havertz got his goal. So, yeah, I mean, no complaints for me. It was a good lineup. Just nice to see us actually play a back four. And obviously, when I saw Reece starting, I was like a little bit nervous, but I was gassed at the same time. I was like, yes, get in. We might actually win.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. And hey, we did in the end. Bertram, what about you? When you saw the lineup, were you happy with it? Or was there anything that you were like, what are we doing?
No, I was happy to see it. I was happy to see Pulisic get a start. I thought he deserved it. And I'm also happy to see Zakaria getting starts, outside of an injury crisis. I thought he was excellent. I thought he was good in the couple of games we played before the World Cup break as well. So I was happy to see his loan materializing more and more as we go on. And other than that, I'd hoped maybe to see Lewis Hall, if I'm honest. I thought he was good when we played in a three. But fair enough to start Cucurella. Other than that, happy to see Kepa back. I was happy to see the lineup, and even more happy to see that it worked. And I thought we played a treat. I think I also thought that we played in maybe more of a 4-3-3 than the 4-2-3-1 we started in, and Mount drifting from side to side. But I have no complaints with the lineup as we started it. Maybe more about the subs, but I think we'll get into that later.
Yeah, the subs certainly could have come a bit early and they could have certainly been different people. But, we will get to that, like you say. Ladies and gentlemen, by the way, as we obviously haven't streamed in a while until yesterday because of the World Cup and I was ill and Christmas and all sorts, please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps me out because we're on the way. Let me not be egotistical. We're on the way to 20,000 subscribers, and smash the like button as well because the algorithm, if you don't stream for a while and everything, is a bit dodgy. So please hit that like button. It really helps me spread these videos, these live streams out to more people. Just one click of a button that doesn't cost you any time or any money. We massively appreciate it. So please hit the like button and subscribe, like I say. All right, then, shall we just start with the ratings? And shall we just start with Kepa? He had absolutely nothing to do whatsoever in the first half. But then in the second half, there was a few occasions when he did have to make a couple of decent saves. Came for crosses. I still like how he looks so confident. That save at the near post was pretty good. The distribution, I'm happy with. because he wasn't called upon that much. Oh, what happened here? We can't exactly go too high, but I still think he did well. I'm still pretty happy with it. I'm just going to give him a 7. I don't think he had to do enough to go any higher than that. But I think a 7 is a fair rating. Bertrand, would you agree with that?
Yes, completely. Happy to see him back as well. Playing with the confidence we saw before he got injured. I feel very secure whenever I see Kepa play, especially during the distribution part of it. I thought when Bournemouth, they pressed high, as they did throughout the game, I thought he was cool under the pressure. He also had one pass to Jorginho where it was quite a ballsy pass, if I'm honest, but it came off. So I think, over average 7, I can't complain. I think it was a great rating, played well, and kudos to Kepa.
Fair dues. Pys, would you agree with the 7 as well, or would you go for something different?
Yeah, I think it's a good rating. I do. I think, what Bertram said, and just in terms of the confidence, like, he just planets ahead in terms of confidence compared to Mendy. Like, it's not even comparable. Like, I've seen Kepa. We've all seen Kepa at his lowest. Like, he just, it doesn't. It looks like he looked like he didn't want to be, at Chelsea at certain points. So, he just really, like distribution, just like the cross which he palmed out, like he didn't hesitate to that. The save didn't go through his legs where they had the shot and they tried to pull it low. I think it was about the 80th minute. So, like, I just think even though he didn't have like loads of shots to save, I still think he was pretty good, to be honest. And I'll give him a 7.
Fair. No, I couldn't agree more. And actually something that most people missed, and I got it pointed out to me by somebody else, and then I put it in our group chat, and then I think you tweeted it. Interestingly, Mendy wasn't even on the bench, which I still haven't seen or heard anything about that from anyone, why that might have been the case, because obviously he played for Senegal. Koulibaly started. So that's a bit weird, right?
Apparently he's injured, or was like Graham Potter said in the press conference before this game, apparently, that he had 2 training sessions with us, but he was a doubt, which I didn't even pick up on. So
I watched that press conference. I didn't. Maybe it was an embargoed bit, and I missed the quote.
Maybe loads of people like replying, or he was a doubt. So I just deleted the tweet because they probably true.
Yeah, fair enough. Then
do you guys think we need a new?
Shall we?
If I quickly do you think we need a new goalkeeper for the start of next season? Because I myself am a bit torn about it.
Yeah, I would say so. I think we do. But let's see how Kepa does this season. That's a debate for a rainy day.
Yeah, and because I understand exactly what you mean, Bertrand. Because for me, it's a case of it depends on who's available, right? Because you can say, look at what a difference Alisson joining Liverpool made to that team. Yeah, if we could get a goalie of the quality of Alisson, get that, sure. But if we're going to sign some other goalkeeper who's probably about the level of Kepa or Mendy, then what's the point, right? And when I think about like which goalies are available, I'm like, are any of them going to be so much significantly better than Kepa? I don't know. But then at the same time, obviously, we're doing now data-driven, analysis-driven scouting and whatever recruitment. If they find someone who's an absolute gem and a superstar, regardless of young, old, cheap, or expensive, if they're incredible, go for it. But don't just go for it for the sake of it, if that makes sense. Like, if someone becomes available, great. If they don't, I think we're fine with Kepa for the time being. But obviously, the second half of the season could change that opinion of mine again. So who knows, I guess. But yeah, it's a difficult one. But what is your thoughts, though, Bertrand? Because, you say you're torn. But where does the torn come from?
No, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. I thought when we got Mendy in, I thought it made such a monumental difference because I thought he was very good the first couple of seasons we had him. I like Kepa. But I think if we want to go to that next level, as you've pointed out, Alisson was the exact comparison I had in my head. I think if there was such an obvious shout in the market, I think we should go for it. But it depends on where we want to be as a team next season. If we want to be pushing for those latter stages of the Champions League and not just hoping for it and pushing Manchester City and Liverpool to the title, I think we need to upgrade. But seeing as we have, Slanina as well, maybe we could wait it out. But, Kepa is 28 now. But if he keeps improving throughout the rest of the season, I see no reason to not reward the loyalty that he's showing toward us right now and that we've shown toward him.
I would agree. There you go. All right, then. Let's move on to the centre-backs. And I want to start with Thiago Silva. Pais, you praised him earlier. What rating would you give him? I thought it was a very good performance. Can't really complain, especially because he seemed to have a niggle from the very start of the game and then somehow still played the whole game and was fine. So, I don't know. Maybe he just stubbed his toe and it wasn't an injury kind of niggle and wobble that he had rather than a tight muscle. And that's why he was, hobbling about for the whole time. But still weird that, a 38-year-old plays and then is limping for quite a significant part of the first half and still plays the whole game and seems absolutely fine by the end. So I'm not really sure how that's possible, but Thiago Silva defies odds. So there you go. What rate would you give him, bro?
Yeah, I think, as I said, I thought he played very, very well, made more clearances than any other player on the pitch. And that's not just booting it off the pitch when the cross come in. Like, he was he's just so composed. Honestly, I just love watching him play. He's two, 3 steps ahead of pretty much 95% of attackers in the league. Like, he knows what's coming before it comes. Like, it's ridiculous, bro. There was occasion in the first half. I think Bournemouth played like a line-breaking pass. He recognised it, got in front of the guy, and just like toe poked it and just got in front and passed it to one of the players. I was just like, what? Like, this is just is like the brains that you just don't find anymore. To
be fair, Koulibaly actually had a very similar tackle before. Well, Pulisic did make it 3-0, but the referee somehow stopped play before. The idiot.
Yeah, that referee is just board referees. Don't get me started.
Like Anthony Taylor is just a prick. But this referee to me didn't seem like a prick. It just seemed completely incompetent.
I thought, when he gave that foul to like that free kick against Koulibaly, I genuinely thought he's just given that to try and make it like a close ending or something. Like, it was genuinely ridiculous. But
first I thought he was going to book the guy for a dive, and then all of a sudden he gives him a free kick. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, no. But Silva, I'm going to give him an 8, to be honest. I think he was very good tonight. I think there was if you didn't. For me, I think it's a case of if you didn't really watch for Silva, you probably would have just given him like a 6 or a 7. But for me, I always I always focus on him because I love him as a player. It's the same with Kovacic, and just so many moments where I was no words, just wow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Bertram, would you go as high as the 8, or would you go slightly lower than that potentially?
I will definitely go as high as an 8. We saw Ronaldo get a Rolls Royce for his birthday present or Christmas present. Luckily, we already had one. I thought he was outstanding. He had a point, I think it was in the first half, when a dodgy ball came into the box and Adam Smith, he kind of headed in and just casually, took it down on his chest and played it out. I think we are so lucky to have this guy, even at 38. My heart was racing when we saw him at the start limp around with the lump toe, as we've decided he had. So I think an 8 is more than deserved. We got a clean sheet out of it. Perfect. I really think we need to respect this player that we have, because a real gem of a center back we have here in Thiago Silva.
No, exactly. I mean, someone did mention it. Silva does have one mistake every match at the moment. That is true. He did almost give a goal away with a misplaced pass in the second half, I think, early in the second half. But outside of that, phenomenal. I personally probably would have gone 7.5, but hey, if you guys go 8, that's absolutely fine with me. Before we go to Koulibaly, let me highlight a super chat by Richard. Richard, thank you for donating again, and obviously for being back on the streams and getting involved. I'm still trying to figure out how that was a foul on Havertz, or I think you meant to say by Havertz. Didn't the defender step in front of Havertz who had control of the ball? I'm confused. Exactly my thoughts. I cannot understand. I don't personally think it's definitely a penalty for us. I think it was more of a coming together than a direct foul. I wouldn't, if Pulisic doesn't get there and I wouldn't cry too much about it not getting a penalty for that. But how it's a foul from Havertz and the referee stops it. So to stop VAR getting involved, because if people don't know, after the referee blew his whistle, that's after that Pulisic scored. Obviously, he would have scored regardless of the referee blowing his whistle in that situation. But still, because the ref had stopped play, VAR can't get involved anymore. And it's just stupid. It's just really, really bad refereeing. It's just as simple as that. Because even if he thinks it is a foul, it's still bad refereeing to stop it and not let VAR make sure you're actually correct, because you were not. So it's just bad refereeing. You can't really put it any other way, in my opinion. But there you go. Thiago Silva gets an 8, and we get to Kalidou Koulibaly. Now, he did have that one very dodgy pass early in the well, at some point in the first half anyway, which led to a bit of a chance for Bournemouth. Actually, Bournemouth's biggest and only real chance in the first half, which needed Cucurella to kind of clean up with the backheel flick. Even though the guy probably could have shot, first time, and then who knows what happens. But outside of that, I thought Koulibaly was very good. Nearly scored, very, very close to score with his head from an Azpilicueta cross in the second half, which would have made the scoreline look a bit better. He had that interception just before that actual Pulisic goal, that third goal. He intercepted that ball with a great tackle. So I thought he was just about a tad worse than Thiago Silva. I would have given Thiago Silva a 7.5. I would have given Koulibaly a 7. But I thought it was very good, other than that one dodgy pass in the first half. And Thiago Silva had a dodgy pass in the second half. So I guess it evens itself out in that sense. But yeah, I will say 7. But I'm intrigued what you guys are going to say. Bertram, what about you?
Well, we're on the same wavelength, Lawrence. I think I'd give him a 7 as well. I thought he was overall good. I think it was a solid performance. A lot like Kepa, I thought he was all right when tested. Did nearly give me a heart attack, but seeing Thiago Silva also did, I think a 7 is more than fair. And I hope to start seeing, this on a more continual basis and see the player that we actually signed from Napoli. But a commanding force at the back, and as you said, nearly scored. I think I've noticed that he has a knack of that. I think I seem to always see him when we have like these free kicks and these corners come first. And I think it's important to have, and something that Graham Potter, always values in having center backs who are good in the air.
And something that we lost, obviously, when Rudiger left, right? So it's important that we have someone else that can do that.
So I thought he was good. I would give him a 7 personally.
Fair dues. Now, I do only think he was 0.5 worse than Silva, so I would like to go 7.5 from that point of view. But like I say, I'm going to go just name my own ratings, and then we see where we end up with collectively. So 2 7 so far. Pys, would you go for a 7 as well? Would you go 7.5 potentially? What would you give Koulibaly?
I'll go 7. I think he'll be a lot better in the back four if we do play this. I've said that loads, but I don't know. There's still I still have a little bit of concern about his. Just I always feel like he's going to go in for a rash tackle or just have a moment of giving the ball away or something. Whereas
he didn't get booked today, so
yeah, but I'm sure there was one moment where he went flying into someone, and I think it got played advantage. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't feel totally secure, is what I'd say. But he did play well. He did nearly score. He was most of the time good on the ball, but it's not perfect yet.
No,
so
I agree.
Yeah, he's not rock solid, but I would say a 7. Yeah, I think he played quite well.
Fair dues. There was also a moment where, in build-up, Jorginho had the ball and was just starting to shout at Koulibaly, "Move over there, flipsec, because give me passing options." And Koulibaly was like, "Oh, sorry." It's come on, man, be quick and at it. Because I know what you're saying with the rashness. I agree with that, but I think the rashness from Koulibaly and all of his weird little mistakes that he's made, aside from the passing now, all comes that he's just taking a little too long sometimes to clock on as to what's happening. I'm not sure if that's not his biggest strength, to process everything fast, or if it's just still that transition coming from from Serie A to the Premier League, and now basically the World Cup experience is obviously in terms of tempo, it's probably more like the Serie A, if not slower than that. And now back to Premier League and everything. So, but that's where I think the kind of his biggest issues come from. But if he can just adjust to it more and more, then I think we'll be absolutely fine. And if he plays like today, I don't think we have too much to worry about. But all right, then, let's move on. Let's do Cucurella first. And Pys, you mentioned it in the group chat during the game, and you were saying whether anybody else thought Cucurella has been really good. And yes, boy, I did. I thought it was really, really good. I know people have been very critical of him, and I thought actually the last couple of weeks before the World Cup, he actually started to come into his own a little bit more. He doesn't play the way people are used to left backs and fullbacks playing. He does things very differently, and that's we bought him for doing things differently. Because the way he defends aggressively is, I've not seen a lot of people do that the way he does. He's completely disregards his position and just starts slowly moving out. Basically, just waits for the moment we can attack the ball. And you don't see defenders do that, because the defender usually can't do that. And yeah, that can come with a certain amount of risk at times. But when it works, that's how you're really good in transition, because winning the balls in those areas that's how you can have such good transitioning moments to attack. It can be so useful. And I mean, he gets himself about. His touch is great. The way he got himself out of tight situations with Pulisic and Mount today, phenomenal stuff. Even the back heel flick defending early in the first half, great. I was very, very, very happy with him today, honestly. I would have given him the same 7.5 that I would have given Thiago Silva. But obviously you guys gave Thiago Silva an 8. But I still stick to the 7.5 for Cucurella. Let's see what you boys think. Pys, would you go along with 7.5? Would you potentially go even higher? What would you say?
I will give him that. It seems like we're agreeing a lot on ratings today, but yeah, I will give him a 7.5 just because I think defensively, a lot of the attacks that Bournemouth did have, a lot of them did come down his side, and I thought he dealt really, really well with them. So yeah, I'll give him a 7.5, and yeah, just good in the tackle. There was a moment in the box where he nicked the ball, which looked like they were about to score, but yeah, just better defensively today, I thought. So yeah, 7.5. And Manu, unfortunately, have just scored.
That is very unfortunate. But here we are. Sorry, Bazooka. I think, in my opinion, you could not be more wrong. To me, he's not a counter-attacking player at all. Because he's not the fastest, and his decision-making of where to pass is not super quick. He passes great passes, but they're not always, So I completely disagree with that. But fair enough. And Tommy, yeah, we won a game. Let's sack the manager. Great idea. Bloody hell, people. But anyways, 2 7.5 so far then. Bertram, are we going to make it another triple? Or are we going to have a disagreement here?
No, I'm not going to make this very difficult for you. I think a 7.5 is all right. I don't know. I think I do realize what you are saying. I do accept a lot of the points. I think he was... It might just be the way I was watching it, but I didn't think he was just as visible as Reece James, but who is. Yeah, I suppose he was solid. I do some of the things that Pys was saying about Koulibaly kind of resonates with me more when talking about Cucurella, because most of the time it does work when he's that rash, and he does push out, but sometimes he does leave players behind. But I suppose that happens with most fullbacks. So I think we should give him his plaudits. And I'd agree with you both with your rating.
Hey, if you want to give him a 7, number one, it doesn't change the rating anyway. But also, speak your truth, bro.
No, I think 7.5 is perfect. No, on top of the win as well. I think it makes sense.
Fair dues. All right then, let's get to Reece James before he got injured. It's weird because it seemed like it really made us significantly worse when he wasn't there anymore. Again, I don't think on today's occasion this is necessarily a case of just, okay, we lost the quality of Reece James, because he was good, but I don't think he was anything special today, if I'm honest. You could see that he's just coming back from an injury. You could see that he's not quite fully sharp, whether it was when he released the ball, when he decided to pass, when he decided to cross, how quickly he got into areas. Not saying he was bad by any means, but I just didn't think he was, the outstanding Reece James that we're almost used to, because he's just so remarkably incredible. I don't know. I'm thinking 6.5, 7. I'm not sure where I want to go with that. But number one, do you agree with what I'm saying? And maybe what you guys say will help me make that decision of what I want to go with. Did you see what I saw, or did you think he was amazing today?
Well, to be honest, I would have given him a 7.5 as well. Okay. I think the thing with Reece James is he does have, a certain amount of output as a footballer does have. He had a shot on target. He did set up, I think, Sterling and Mount both a couple of times. But also the allure of him being there and his aura, I think it makes such a difference. And the way he was positioned tactically, it almost seemed like he was a midfielder in a sense. How high he was pushed up. It was different to Cucurella. But I'd give him a 7.5. I thought he was very good, and I think we did, severely become more poor after he went off. So I think he had a great debut when he came on, even for his standards. I've seen him have worse games this season. So I think I would reward him with the 7.5. I think it was one of his better games in the Chelsea shirt, especially this season.
Really? Fair enough. Pys, what about you? Would you go as high as Belgium did? Or did you kind of see what I was talking about, in the sense that, I don't know, it didn't feel 100% just sharp? I'm not saying bad by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know. It just, yeah. Did you see that at all? Maybe I was the only one.
No, I thought he was as sharp as he was when he wasn't injured. For me, I thought he looked really, really good.
Right.
Going forward, I think there was no hesitancy at all. I thought he looked really sharp, good on and off the ball. Yeah, I'll give him a 7 because he didn't quite play. He didn't quite play 90 minutes. Didn't even play. I think came off like 50 minutes. So
Yeah,
yeah,
55 or whatever it was.
yeah. So I'll give him a 7. But no, I thought he was solid.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't lower his rating just because he played less, but fair dues. I'm going to agree. I'm going to give him a 7. I think Bertram, you or both of you guys have made fair points. Maybe I was a little bit harsh, but yeah, maybe it's just my super high expectations of him. Maybe that was more of the issue. But yeah, I think you made a good point, Bertram, also in terms of how it shifted positionally. Like you obviously said, he was basically a midfielder, calling midfielder almost kind of like a wingback at times in a way, even though we didn't play with wingbacks today. I was a fan. I was a big fan. We'll leave Aspie to last. Not to last, when we get to the subs. And let's go with Jorginho. I thought very good performance from him today. A lot of forward passing, a lot of over-the-top forward passing. Not all of them necessarily always came off, but they never will, no matter who you are. Even for Cesc, they didn't. And Cesc is obviously special, and they came off definitely more than they did for Jorginho. Let me not ruin Cesc's name like that. But yeah, I thought it was very good. Was very happy. I like the way he, dictates the press, dictates how we play, dictates how everyone does things on the pitch. And when I see us play like this, and when I see him dominate games for us like that, and he's not always perfect. I think we're all aware of that. We're all aware that he's too slow. We're all aware that he's physically weak, and we're all aware that he's sometimes, and because of how weak and slow he is, he can't make up for his own errors. You know how Zakaria makes mistakes, and he made a number of them today. But because of how quick he is and of how strong and tall he is, he can just get back and do something about it. Jorginho, once he makes a mistake, lose the ball, he usually can't do anything about it himself anymore. He needs someone else to fix it for him. Now, he probably makes less mistakes than pretty much every other player we have, aside from Silva and Reece James. But when he does them, they just look real bad. And they are real bad because they're obviously big issues for the team. But when I see how important he is to everything we do, I just cannot understand how the reports from the Athletic are that we will let him leave for free. Now, unless his wage demands are astronomical, I just don't understand. I still want us to sign a DM and probably make Jorginho the backup with that. But how you would let him leave is, to me, absolutely unfathomable, quite frankly. Because when we play well, I don't think I've ever seen Chelsea play well and Jorginho had a bad game. That doesn't happen. I can't remember that happening. Now, of course, you would say, which team plays well when their main midfielder plays badly? Okay, maybe that is a fair point. But still, I feel like it happens that we have a good game and Kante's been average. It's happened with Kovacic that he's been average. When Jorginho plays well, the team plays well. When the team plays well, Jorginho plays well. Which makes it still of an issue when he plays badly, making the whole team play bad. That is, of course, an issue. I'm very aware. But yeah, I don't know, I always find it baffling how a player that gets criticized so much can dominate and dictate games this much the way he does. Again, maybe not everyone agrees with the way I think about this, but that's how I see it regardless. Pice, number 1, do you see it that way? Number 2, what rating would you give him? Oh, sorry, I should probably name my own rating. I would probably, 7.5 or 8. I'd probably push an 8 if I'm honest. Maybe it's a bit high. Maybe I'll take it down later. But for now, I'll say an 8. What would you give him?
Yeah, the rating's a tricky one. I gave Silva an 8, but I think Jorginho, like you said, you mentioned earlier, when he told Koulibaly, you're supposed to be here, give me options. It's just that leadership that the reason why I keep banging on about just not letting him go. He's so important for us. He doesn't have to start every game next season, but he just, first off, he gets massively overplayed by us as well because we don't really have a backup 6 as such. Even Zakaria has not been playing 6. He's been playing in the more like a number 8 in the pivot, the more advanced one. So, yeah, I agree. He was great tonight. I read a stat which he made more recoveries, 15 recoveries in tonight's game. That's more than any other Premier League player this game week so far. And yeah, he was really, really good, to be honest. I agree with you on the fact that when he plays well, the whole team plays well. I do agree with that. It is obviously on the flip side when he gets overrun and all the physical aspects come into play. Sometimes he's a real liability, but in these types of games, when we have a lot of the ball, when we play a 4 at the back as well, I think he's just so good, man. I don't see how people don't rate him or think he's average. They just don't know ball. So yeah, I'll go with an 8 to be fair.
Who was it? Like, was it one of the youth players that said in training he's like by far the best player?
Yeah,
Who was that? I saw the quote.
Derek Abu, I think, is one of the youth players. He said he's the best player he's ever seen in training.
There you go. There you go. I mean, probably not every player would say that about him, but it's someone that says it. But yeah, United are 2-0 up, unfortunately. And Bertram, do you want to finish off the Jorginho rating? Because after that, I'll quickly get up another quote by Graham Potter about the Reece James thing, which sounds even worse than the first quote. But would you agree with our rate? Do you think that's maybe pushing it a little bit too high? I'm still not fully decided whether I don't want to go down to 7.5. But what about you, mate?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna try and prolong the piece we have until you put the quote up. I'm happy to talk about Jorginho. To be honest with you both, he was my man of the match. I would give him an 8.5, and I would give him this rating because I think he's such an underrated player when I watch him play. But I thought today he was especially important, and he had a good game. I think when you look at the Bournemouth high press, especially in the first half, I thought he played us out of some very dangerous situations with some some calmness. And as Pai said, he had a lot of recoveries as well. So even though he is, not the fast, he's not Usain Bolt, let's be honest. I thought he did well for himself, and I thought he was instrumental to the way we play. And I think Jorginho is a player that gets massively slept on as well, even by us Chelsea fans, because when you look at the midfielders we're being linked with, rightly so, they are DMs, they are, closer to destroyers than, a player like Cesc Fabregas, for example, and rightly so. And to me, it's baffling that we don't want to extend with Jorginho, because I think such a rare player to have, especially for us for these past couple of seasons. And you've both touched upon the leadership as well. One of the most senior players we've had in our squad. And as the youth player said, one of the best players in training. I think he was excellent. And I think we'd be dumb to let him go on a free. So my man of the match, I would give him, even though it doesn't change that much, I'd give him an 8.5.
First. Let me highlight this super chat by Richard. He says, my only issue with Jorginho is the ungodly amount of back passes he does. Did it a lot in this game also. It's weird because I do see that. And I do, sometimes that also irks me a little bit. But I'm not always 1,000,000% sure is whether people are correct in saying that this is Jorginho's fault. Because, Potter a little bit less so than Thomas Tuchel. But Thomas Tuchel and Potter also are very adamant on keeping possession. So, people sitting there and say, always just pass it backwards, as if that's only the player's fault. When you always just pass it forward, if you always do that, that's when you make games crazy. And as the better team, which we are against most opponents, then you don't want games to be crazy. Because making games crazy is how you get upset results. Because then things just can just get out of hand and can just go a little bit out of control, and you want to be in control. So while I see that, I agree that sometimes he does maybe a bit too much, to absolutely just sit there and say, no, you can't pass backwards, or even more than 5 times a game is too much for you already, then I think you need to see football a little bit differently. It's not, you can't just always go boom, boom, boom. I don't think it works that way. I'm not sure if everyone agrees, but that's how I view that anyway. And I wanted to mention one other thing here by EPL Turf, who asks, you also have to consider the level of opposition. Can Jorginho perform at a higher level against Man City, Arsenal, Newcastle? Now, while that is maybe a fair point to make.
Yes, he can. He dropped the masterclass in the Champions League final. There you go.
Absolutely. No, number one, that. And number two, we don't also play those teams every week. The majority of why we're currently 16 points behind Arsenal is not because we drop points against the big teams. It's because we drop too many points against the lesser teams. So, and that's partly why I want Jorginho to be here, but not necessarily have to start every game. That's why I would like to sign Declan Rice. If someone gives me, the whole Enzo Fernandez thing, if we aren't going too long, we maybe touch on it at the very end. But yeah, so while I see what you're saying, number one, I think, yes, he can. But obviously that makes it more difficult. But is it always his fault when he gets more difficult in those kind of teams, against those kind of teams? Or is it that then the teams around him can't provide the kind of help that he needs? And yeah, people say you shouldn't need that help. But do you guys think Cesc Fabregas would have been as good for Chelsea if he didn't have Matic next to him? Or if he didn't have Kante next to him? Those types of creative players, or Xavi and Iniesta, they wouldn't have been as good if they didn't have Sergio Busquets behind them. players need other players. This is a team sport. You're not good as an individual, other than if you're Messi and Ronaldo and these types of and Hazards, right? Especially midfielders. Each player will have certain strengths, and every strength will need certain counterparts that, you know, even it out, because every player, no matter who you are, has also certain weaknesses. And then what your job as the manager is basically is to highlight the strengths and basically cover up the weaknesses. And that's the kind of, that's when, you know, when people talk about a team being balanced, that's what that means. When you manage to highlight the strengths of your players and cover up the weaknesses of your players. And that's how you become a successful football team. Do you think every player at Man City is perfect? They have a lot of slow players in midfield as well, but they manage to, as a team, cover the weaknesses and the physical weaknesses and the pace weaknesses of certain players with other players. And that's how they can highlight the strengths of those players that may be a bit slow and maybe a bit weak, but see football just quick, like Jorginho, see football just quicker and better than other players do, and win football with brain power rather than physical power, right? So, like, football has multiple facets to it. Sorry, I feel like I've been holding a monologue. Does any of you guys want to add anything to that? Do you just want to agree, or shall we just move on? I'll take it as we'll move on. Absolutely no problem. Someone says Fabregas has assist record in Premier League. Disgrace, do you mean Fabregas? Sorry. What I said is, do you think that Fabregas would have been as good without Matic or Kante next to him? I didn't say Jorginho is as good as Fabregas. I just said, would Fabregas have been as good without those players? And the simple answer is no, he would not. It's a simple fact. But anyways, let me quickly get up the quote about Reece James, because this one doesn't look as good, does it? Potter, on Reece James, we have to keep our fingers crossed at the moment. He's disappointed, of course. At the moment, we're just hoping it isn't as bad, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. All right, so 2 fingers crossed, apparently. Pys, reaction, thoughts?
I'm absolutely shitting myself for tomorrow, honestly. If it comes out tomorrow or the day after, like, I don't know, maybe it's just like, I don't know, maybe it's just the way he's wording things. Like, I think underneath this tweet, he said, like, we have to hope it's not as bad as before. Well, yeah, no shit. But, yeah, I think anyone would say that. So, yeah, we have to just hope it's not as bad as it was. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
so
you do flipping bloody have to hope that. And don't send him on a stroll about in Milan this time, please. Bertram, thoughts, reaction?
I think it's, I think the quote doesn't say much, if I'm honest. As Pai said, I'm worried about the outcome as well. I do think it's time to dip into the January market, something we're not, too fond of doing always, and see if there's an option, because I would not be content with playing Azpilicueta for the rest of the season, especially because you saw how good we were today when we had a competent, it's a bit harsh in Azpilicueta, but, a competent right-hand side. So I think, just as well for him, this is devastating. I hope it's not, I hope he isn't as injury prone as you could fear, because there is really nothing stopping him from being one of the best players, one of the best defenders, let alone players in the world. So I think it's hugely disappointing for him as well. But I think we as a club now also to take the pressure off him. If we'd had a good right wing back option, he wouldn't have had to play today. So I think it's time we have to dip into the market and see if there's anything we can do to ease that pressure off him and us as well, and Graham Potter. Yeah.
I mean, this is obviously horrible and awful, but if Todd Bowley needed another kind of kick up the bum, that we need another right back, maybe this is what he needed. Like, stop buying 17-year-old Brazilians that we don't need for the next 3 years. Buy a right back, for the love of God. Buy a right back. Even though, to be fair, Aspie played the best cross of anybody that we had today. Obviously, Koulibaly just about put it wide, but that was the best cross anybody played today. Well, to be fair, Sterling's took Havertz, but it was a different kind of cross, Jeremy, in terms of like what I imagine as a real, high and from quite far out cross. Aspie played the best one, but that was the only good thing he did, quite frankly. Other than that, he tried to be an actor and tried to, get himself an Oscar. What is he doing? Flying on the floor with 20 minutes left after he got a ball in the face. Anyway, let's get to Zakaria. You know what, Bertram? I feel like I always made you go last quite a few times here. Why don't I let you go very first? What did you make of Zakaria? Like, my commentator kept saying that this was his Premier League debut. Was it actually his Premier League debut or just his first start?
He didn't play
I
against
don't know.
Newcastle as well.
Yeah, it was.
He
It
did.
was. His,
We had
it was.
I had the same.
It was his debut, right? Because he played in the Champions League, and who did he play after? That was a cup competition as well. Was it Man City? I think.
City, yeah.
Yeah. So no, he hasn't played.
But
in
did
the
he not
Premier
even
League
come on in any Prem games?
No, I don't think so. I think this is his Premier League debut.
Salzburg was his debut, or Zagreb, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's obviously Champions League, right? So,
Mm.
yeah. And
Yeah,
you know
I
what?
think
That makes it even more impressive, if I'm honest. If that was actually his first Premier League game, that's very impressive.
yeah, and I was very happy to see his performance as well. I think he's the type of player we've needed, and as I alluded to earlier, I'm happy for him as well. Working hard and seeing that, it wasn't a good low move at the start when we looked at it in like October and September when he hadn't gotten a minute of football anywhere for anything. So I thought he was good today. I thought the physical presence of having in the midfield, I thought he supported Jorginho quite well. I think you could maybe see a little bit that it was his debut, so I wouldn't give him as high a rating as in general. But I think we can't complain too much about his performance. Gave his all, got subbed off. He got subbed off. So I would personally give him, I think I'd give him a 7. I thought he was average, but good average, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. Now, I do feel a little bit harsh on Koulibaly and maybe even Reece to be again the same, because Zakaria did make a few mistakes, but because this was genuinely his debut, the Premier League debut, I will agree. In the grand scheme of things, he was fantastic. And I tweeted this during the game. He's not even that great. Like, he's good, but he's not even that great. And still, look at the difference he makes to our midfield. Just having someone who's got legs on him and who's tall and physically strong and actually has a bit of a defensive mind about it. Because Ruben has obviously the height and is a little bit slow, I would say, but still, he's not super slow. But he can't quite give us that in terms of, that kind of, just the stability in terms of being hit on the counter, because he's just someone that has some pace, is strong, knows how to tackle. He just gives us something. And now imagine someone giving us that plus being really good at football. Now imagine that. We'd be absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, I still think in the grand scheme of things, it was very good. He had a couple of occasions where he nearly could have scored as well. I like him as a guy that won tackle at the edge of the box or just inside the box. It was also very good. But yeah, he just needs to maybe control his, calm down with the misplaced passes on a few occasions, especially the risky ones. But in general, as a Premier League debut goes, wow. Compare that to Saul's Premier League debut last season, against Southampton. I think it was Southampton. Compare that. So, fair play to you, Zakaria, fair play. Got to take my hat off. That is very impressive. Pys, would you agree with the 7? Would you go a little bit lower, higher? What would you think?
I think... Yeah, probably a 7. I think just because he was a little bit sloppy on the ball, but he definitely gives us something different. He gives us that physical, fast profile in there that I think defensively you saw tonight a lot of times where, he blocked a pass or was just in good positions, I think, defensively as well as going forward. So, yeah, I'd give him a 7. I think, I think he was pretty good. He was definitely impressive for a debut. I'd like to see him against, obviously, better opposition, but yeah, he could be one of those ones where, thankfully we haven't messed up on a panic buy. So yeah, we'll see.
Exactly. Can't complain too much. I mean, Todd Bowley doesn't want to sign players that are older than 12. But so we're probably not, even if he has the phenomenal second half of the season, still feel like we're not going to buy him permanently. But hey, if he can be of help until then, that's all that really matters. Let me highlight that other super chat by Richard. Thank you very much again. He says, is it time to put Reece in that Christian Pulisic bubble wrap? I'm American, so if I'm not offended by this, nobody else should be. I mean, to be fair, Pulisic hasn't been injured much in the last 18 months, really. So, maybe whatever bubble wrap we gave him was just effective. So maybe we do need to put Reece James in that bubble wrap. But the problem is Pulisic has also, he's played, but not to the level of Reece James, who starts every single game pretty much, other than every 10 games he gets a rest. I mean, when he's fit. So whether Pulisic would also have stopped being injured if he played that much, that we don't know. But yeah, we all love Reece. Like, if this was any player that's not Reece, people would be so harsh about how injury prone he is. Just look at the people's reaction when Fofana got injured. People don't know Fofana that well yet. People don't know how good he is yet, like for us. And people were right on his case and saying some outrageous things when we heard about that injury. Same thing, identical thing basically happens to Reece James, and no one criticizes Reece James. Everyone goes after Potter and the doctors and everything. So like that just shows you what a difference it makes whether people like a player or don't like a player, or you know what I mean. Willy Bolly scored. Go on, Willy Bolly. It wasn't even Willy Bolly. It was Ryan.
It was offside.
Offside.
It was offside.
Oh. Well, here we go. There we go.
Sorry, just to say as well, I've just seen Graham Potter say that Kovacic and Ziyech will be back tomorrow in training.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I wonder, like, especially because Pulisic and Sterling both played well today, whether, excuse me, still slightly ill, whether that will, screw Ziyech over again. Because after World Cup, I was like, well, maybe he deserves a bit of a go now, at least. But now if Pulisic and Sterling play well, then he won't have a go again. Obviously, there will be rest and rotation needed anyways. All right, then. Let's get to Mason Mount. It's so fascinating how a lot of this fan base just loses their shit at him. I'm not saying he was great this season, obviously not. But I feel like now he's not played a good season so far. People now pretend as if his last seasons were awful. I'm like, how have you created this fabrication in your head that he wasn't good? Like, no one said he was as good as De Bruyne last year, but he was still good last year, clearly. I mean, they got double figures in goals and assists. People say, oh, only numbers. But I mean, you complained about everybody else not getting goals and assists. So the one guy that does do it, then you say, don't just look at numbers. So which one is it then? And today was very good, being a mix of a left 8, a left centre mid, to a number 10. Getting that goal. What a finish, by the way. The amount of wonderful turns he had. Great. The forward pass to Sterling before the Havertz goal. Phenomenal. I was very, very happy with Mason Mount today. I thought he played brilliantly well. The intensity, the pace, the aggression. Superb, I thought. Genuinely superb. For me, I haven't fully made a decision on who I want to be my man of the match, but I would give Mason Mount an 8.5. There will be some more high ratings like that, but yeah, I would give him an 8.5. Pys, would you agree with that? Do you think that's a little bit too high? Maybe should I even push a 9? Like, he did score. It was a good goal.
I'm actually going to go lower, to be honest. I think he played well, but I think it was a great goal, by the way. Really, really good goal. If you watch the slow-mo replay where it just curls around, it's a great goal. The keeper couldn't have saved it. But, other than that, I don't think he was amazing. I'm going to give him a 7.5. Actually, no, I'll give him an 8. I'll give him an 8. Not an 8.5. I'll give him an 8. But yeah, I don't think he was as involved as people are making it out to be honest. He played a few nice passes, good switches of play, but yeah, I want more from him. He can deliver more, but it's definitely a better game than he's had this season for, a lot of it. So yeah, I'll go with an 8.
Oh, I was a little bit confused. I wanted to look at the stats from the game, and all of a sudden it said the Mount had 12 touches, which obviously didn't. It just didn't update. It's 62 touches. That is quite involved, though. 62 touches. Comparing that, Sterling had 52. Pulisic had 38. Surprised by that, if I'm honest. I thought Pulisic was very involved. But anyways, fair dues. An 8.5 and an 8 so far. Bertram, and which way are you going to make the rating lean?
I'd go with an 8.5 as well. I thought he was involved when he had to be. He had a couple of good turns as well. The goal, as Pai said, lovely crisp finish from, arguably the best finisher we have at this football club. So I think it was a vintage Mason Mount performance, and I think he deserves the plaudits he gets. I think he did his role, or he filled his role really well. He was moving from side to side. I thought he was involved quite a lot, especially on the right-hand side in the first half with Reece James, which kind of overloaded it. So I'd give him an 8.5. I thought he was brilliant today. And, he receives a lot of criticism, which I don't really understand. Some of it's warranted. Some of it is not, if we're honest with ourselves. So always happy to see him score. Isn't he close to being our top scorer for this season? I might be wrong.
I don't know. I know Havertz is.
End up being,
I know Havertz
especially.
now,
Yeah.
I don't know.
but I'd give him 8.5 as well. A good performance.
Fair dues, fair dues. Richard with another super chat, and actually, Pies, I'll let you touch on that as well, because while I disagree to some extent with what you're saying, Richard, maybe I should read it out. Mason Mount performs against no-name, lower tier teams. Look up last season how many goals and assists he had against any team in or even near the top half of the table. You're about to get ripped. No, because I think it's still a fair point to make. I just think people overdo that point. I think it's factual what you're saying, that he has most of his goal contributions against bottom half of the table teams. Absolutely. But if he didn't, who would, right? Because people always say that as if it's like just a bad thing. No, this is not a bad thing. But that just means, okay, you can do it against those. Now try to improve upon that and do it against everyone. It's still better than most players who do it against no one, right? So like, I agree with you, but I think people turn this into this crazy negative, which I just don't see it as. Like, yeah, you should do it against everyone and against better teams too, but it's already a start that is doing it against the bottom half teams, because a lot of players don't do it against anybody, and a lot of our players don't do it against anybody. And that's why that's one of the things which Bertram just mentioned, where it's like he gets criticized for things that I just don't understand. Like, yes, say that he needs to do better against those teams, but he just played against Bournemouth. He couldn't play Man City today. Couldn't play Arsenal today. He could only play Bournemouth. That's who the fixture list gave us on December 27th. And he played well. That doesn't mean you can't say, okay, now hopefully he also does it against the better teams. That's absolutely fair to say, I think. But what I don't like is then demeaning the good things he does against bad teams. Because imagine no one did anything against bad teams, because, well, then people wouldn't praise them, because it only counts apparently when you do it against the big teams. You know what happens when you do that? You get relegated. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't just say, only does it against bad teams, so he's shit. No, he's just not as good. Still good though. Like that's how I see that. Pies, well, what's your opinion on that?
Pretty much what you just said, to be honest. I think someone's got to score against the lower teams. I mean, we don't do well traditionally. Most Chelsea teams have not done well over the last few seasons against the Bournemouth, the Leeds, Southamptons, whoever is down near the bottom of the table, or even mid-table teams, to be honest. Teams that generally sit back, we don't really do great against. Obviously, various reasons for that. Some of it's the coach, some of it's the style of play, whatever. Players, whatever. But yeah, someone's got to do it. And Mount has factually scored a lot of goals against teams that are not in the so-called top six. But, as you said, someone's got to do it. I think where the criticism, or even unfortunately where the hate comes from, is that people are like, well, you're 2 times player of the year, but yet you don't do it against the big teams like a lot. You know what I mean? That's where
is that a criticism of Mount, or is that a criticism of all the other players? Because still no one was better than him. Yeah, you could argue maybe Kovacic deserved it and not Mount, but that's, again, Mount didn't vote for himself. So like, that's not his own fault, is it?
Yeah, I know, but you know what social media is like. If you go into the ground, no one's, well, not many people around me anyway that say that Mason Mount's overrated, this, that, or the other. But social media is social media, and yeah, I mean, he definitely does need to improve against bigger teams. But at the same time, yeah, there's so many different reasons for that being the case. So yeah.
No, exactly. I also think Robinson makes an important point here, that Mount doesn't get the same attacking freedom when we play against top teams as when we play against lesser teams, which gives him more attacking impetus compared to when we play top teams. His main job is often to press and keep the ball and win the ball back rather than scoring. You know what I mean? Where against the Bournemouth, of course, that's going to be more of his role, because we're going to be dominating the game so much and everything. That's an important point. And I want to react to this quickly here by T-Spot as well. And then, Bertram, I'll give you the opportunity to talk about this again as well. He says, my biggest problem with rating Mount is that he gets unlimited minutes, 15,000 in the past 3 years. You then clarified later, assuming he logs 5,000 plus this year. A lot of stats are as much a function of repetition as they are of skill. Absolutely. But at least he's actually fit to play that many minutes, because yeah, sometimes you could argue he shouldn't be playing, and sometimes he gets played even though his form isn't good. That's fair. But Reece James would be getting those numbers if he wasn't injured all the time. Kovacic would be getting those minutes if he wasn't injured all the time. Kante would be getting those minutes if he wasn't injured all the time. But the reason Mount gets those minutes, yes, partly he gets played. I don't know why. Does he just because the managers find the work rate and stuff so important? Yeah, maybe sometimes he shouldn't be playing. But the reason he has those numbers isn't because he gets this unfair treatment and gets to play all the time. No, the reason is because he's one of the very few that are actually fit all the time. Remember under Lampard when Coquelin for Valencia literally tried to break Mount's leg and he was back playing a week later. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's why he plays so many minutes. Not because the managers just favor him. No, because unlike most, he's actually fit all the time. And he can actually handle the workload and most can't. Like, again, there's people turn this into a negative where I'm like, would you rather him be like Reece James and miss 4 months every year? I'd bloody not. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying. But Bacham, anything else you want to add to that with the Mason Mount situation?
Well, you touched upon the criticism of him getting minutes. Yeah, well, he's available to get the minutes. And I think this argument makes much more sense when you're like 10 years old and it's your father who's the coach of the team and someone keeps getting picked. I think he brings something to the team which is not always quantified, and I do understand the frustration from people when that happens because he may not always show the quality, especially against the big teams. But I think people are quick to forget. They're quick to forget the impact he had on our Champions League winning campaign. All the way from the what was it? It was
he had a goal or assist in every round of the knockouts. Like, who does that?
Yeah, exactly. In the final, a goal in the semi-final, he was the one who broke our curse at Anfield by scoring in the COVID season as well. So it's not because he's incapable of performing against big teams, and someone has to do it against the small teams as well. And I think for me personally, I always love when we have someone from the academy who shows up because the whole thing, like, they're proper childs because they've grown up here. So for me personally, I don't really care about which player scores, which player assists, as long as someone does it for Chelsea. Those are my thoughts on it. But I think credit where credit's due. He was good today. I think he should get the praise. If he plays terribly against Nottingham Forest, then we tell him he played terribly. It's not really that deep with Mason Mount. So I think it's important that we just have each player on a level playing field and accept them for who they are, and accept from them for the fact that they're doing all they can to get us the 3 points, which I have no doubt that a player like Mason Mount does game in and game out.
I agree. I do find I'm going to read Richard's comment in a second. Commissar Yarrick said 3 different coaches that got fired. Well, by that logic, Chelsea fire every manager. Maybe now we stop that, but until now we fired every manager. So you're saying they're all now bad, or what is this? But yeah, Richard says, I think people's biggest irk is if you look at Chelsea Twitter and Chelsea in general, Mount is treated as the golden boy, yet delivers very little against anyone decent. Now, I think you worded that a bit harsh. Definitely, again, he assisted in a Champions League final. He scored in a Champions League semi-final. He assist? He scored against Porto in the quarterfinals. He assisted against Atletico in the round of 16. Like, can't just say never. Not regularly enough. That's fair. But you can't just say never. But I do still see the point, right? I do still see the point. But again, what annoys me about this is that's not Mount's fault. The reason that Mount is treated as the golden boy, even though he's maybe not as good as like a Hazard or the Lampards or all these guys that we had as our golden boys a few years ago, that's because we don't have any better players. Not because Mount, that's not, Mount is as good as he is. Like, he will try to improve. We all want him to improve. But like, he's as talented as he is. The fact that he now gets treated as the golden boy is, number one, not his choice. Number two, not his fault. If anything, have a go at the recruitment under Roman Abramovich that we haven't signed any better players who could be the golden boy instead of Mount. Like, that's not a Mount problem. That's the rest of the team problem. The fact that he is treated as the golden boy. Now, of course, coming from the academy, being English, that would help. But again, I'm not even English. But isn't it very obvious that if you're English and you support an English club, you're going to like the English players? They play for your national team as well. When the World Cup is on, you want them to do well. Like, that's a totally natural thing. Like, that doesn't mean you should dislike others, but it's okay to like someone from your own academy. What's wrong with that? I don't understand. But anyway, so enough talk about Mason Mount, but I appreciate it, obviously, from Richard, or the Super Chat. I appreciate it a lot. But shall we move on to Christian Pulisic? Shall we take away from the English to the American? Good performance today. Absolutely robbed today. by the referee, because he should have had a penalty, which obviously he wouldn't have taken himself, but still should have had a penalty in my opinion, and should have had a goal if the ref didn't somehow stop play for a foul by Havertz, which wasn't a foul by Havertz. So that would have made it look even better for him. Like this, he will kind of not get the spotlight and the headlines as much as Sterling and Havertz will. But I still think he did well. He got absolutely hacked to pieces for a lot of this game. But he kept going. He looked sharp. He looked quick. I liked it. I'm very, very happy. I'm not going to give him quite the same as Mason, who got an 8.5. But I do still want to praise him, because I don't want to let an incompetent referee rob Pulisic of the praise that he deserves today. Hence why I'm going to give him an 8, because if his goal stands, if he wins as a penalty, everyone's going to be singing his praises the whole afternoon. And I don't think the referee, being shit should stop that. Hence, I'm going to give him an 8. Pys, what are you going to give Pulisic?
Really tough one for me. I think between a 7.5 and 8. I'll go 7.5. I think he was really, really good, to be fair. Again, I think a little bit unlucky to obviously not get that goal, in my opinion. I don't think it was a foul, more of a coming together. But yeah, he looked really good on the ball, and I was just kind of felt sorry for him a little bit, because when he's playing and dribbling like this, he does remind you a little bit of Hazard in terms of the treatment he gets. Like, as soon as he touches the ball, the only thing that anyone wants to do from the other team is just kick him and foul him straight away, because they know he's got that agility and speed to get past you and create an attack. So yeah, when Pulisic is playing like this, I really enjoy it. And I think he looks full of confidence, and I'd like him to start on the weekend as well, because we've seen this too many times where he'll play well and then just randomly gets benched the next game. We're like, well, why is that then? Like, there's no explanation for it. So
yeah, and for some reason he was the one picked to be subbed first again. I don't know why. Like, it was going to be harsh on all of them because they all played well, but why is it always him? I don't know. I hope no one is going to take offense to this, but it made me chuckle. The only American who can't shoot, and he's not even bad at shooting. But Bertram, are you sorry, Pys? Did you decide on between the 7.5, 8, or do you want to leave it up in the air for now? And I'll go to Bertram.
I'll leave it up in the air.
Okay, Bertram, what would you give Pulisic? Maybe we can help Pys out.
I think I'd give him just that little bit under Jorginho. I think Jorginho performed, more consistently throughout the whole game. You wanted to give
Jorginho an 8.5, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. So no, I think especially in the first half, I think he did go a bit amiss during the second half, but during the first half, I thought he was explosive, which is something you've seen of him when he's been his very best. Like at Project Restart. I think he has a real case to be the only angry Chelsea player, other than Reece James tonight. I thought he was robbed of a penalty, if I'm completely honest. Even with the blue tinted glasses off, I think it was a great run he made there, showed some of the pace he has, and just got held back. Still tried to shoot, which I respected. Can't really level anything on him there. And solid finish as well with the Havertz thing. I'm quite livid with the referee, to be honest. Like you both are as well. I thought he was. I think the potential of him now, not long term, but his potential now is good, and I hope to see him start next game again as well. But I thought he showed something good. This might be controversial. I don't think he was our best winger. So I'd give him an 8. I thought he was all right, and I hope he can build momentum on it as well, because he does add something to this team, which he does add some balance, having Raheem Sterling on one wing and then having someone who can do some of the same sort of things, maybe even drift in from that left wing to be sort of a shadow center forward in the box, which we need. So I'd give him an 8.
Okay. Pys, did Bertram help you with your decision between 7.5 and 8, even though it's now going to be an 8 anyway because 2 people said 8? But, what is your decision?
Yeah, I think we should go with an 8. Because I give Silva an 8, and he was influential defensively, but Pulisic was also influential going forward. And I think he actually did quite well, considering he wasn't like the main or that whole side really wasn't really where we was, playing. Even when James came off, as people putting in crosses, everything was down the right-hand side. So, yeah, I think he did quite well considering that fact also.
Fair, absolutely fair. Let's get to Raheem Sterling then. I did in our group chat. I'm not sure if you even saw it, Pys. Quite early in the game, I was like, "So Sterling is still useless." because there was a couple of things where I'm just like, what are you doing? And I still don't understand. Like sometimes he's a bit like William, where like we have a moment to attack, and what does Sterling do? Decides to stand there for half an hour and then pass backwards.
Passes it back. Thank you. I'm getting honestly. I lost my rag with this with people in my group chat. Honestly, they were saying the exact same thing. I said like, who else noticed? Every time we went forward, there was one moment where we literally had like, I think it was like a 3-on-2 or whatever. Like genuinely, we was pretty much through. If he got the ball, he could have just turned and sprinted at the defender. Instead, he literally just
because
passed
he's
it
quick
back.
as shit. So I don't understand why.
So annoying, bro. Even in the first half, when Reece James is making an overlap, like either pass it or take on the bloody player. Oh no, I'll just turn around and delay it and make Reece James offside. Like, just it's so annoying. Yeah, honestly. Yeah. Thank God you said that, because I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, just run, you're fast. It's so it's like
exactly that.
You know, Victor Moses, when he played right wing back, he's reminding me of him. Every time he went forward, take him on, cross. No, I'll just stand here and pass it back. Like, I don't understand. It's fucking annoying.
Victor Moses, poor Sterling, man. Nah, respect Victor Moses, won us the Premier League, man. But yeah, no, I agree. But then he did also have moments today where I'm like, okay, Sterling, you're not all useless then. He did do some good things. The cross for Havertz was nice. Some runs in behind, some pace that he showed again was nice. Like some dribbling, especially like you also getting like dropping and helping out in, beating the press and stuff. Was very happy with that. But also the slight negatives when he had a couple of occasions. And what really irks me is how he like. Why do we have all these players that are so one-footed? Like he obviously played on the right today. His strong foot is the right foot. But then he had this moment, he starts doing the step overs, gets past the man, gets into the box. And I'm like, now shoot. Like you literally did the hard part of getting yourself the space in the box to shoot. And what does he do? He plays it off. I'm like, why? You're a professional footballer, paid £325,000 a week, by far our highest paid player in the squad. And you can't use your left foot. Like, sorry, what is that? Like, come on. You need like any. I don't even think it's a case of that he can't. I think it's a case of that he just doesn't trust himself on it. I don't know why. I'm sure he could do better than he probably believes himself in that moment. But yeah, those kind of things irk me. But I still think he was very good. But now we mentioned so many negative things. I'm not sure, because I was probably going to give him the same 8.5 I gave Mount. But now after you and me, Pies, kind of both agreed on this, maybe I can only give him an 8 then. Because I mean, Sterling did assist, but he didn't score a great goal like Mount did he? So I will give him an 8 as well. But maybe people think that's harsh now. Bacham, I will go with you first on this one. Do you agree with the 8? Would you go lower? What do you think?
I think I would give him an 8 as well, because I want him on a level playing field as Pulisic. I did also notice what you were talking about earlier. I thought he was very good at getting us out. I think in the first half he was a threat for us down that right side, also linking up with Reece James. Where I think in the second half it was more to get us out of the deep transition, where he was quite deeper. But it seems like he's lost some confidence from his City time, because I remember a goal he scored which was ruled out against Leeds, where it was the opposite from what he did in the second half. It was on his right foot as well, but he kind of like ran across the box and then smashed it in, which reminds me much more of the City Sterling we've seen. And it kind of seems like he doesn't have the bite to him anymore. But that being said, I think he did play for his standards this season a fairly decent game. He put in a good cross for Havertz. I've seen tons of Chelsea attackers mess up that cross, even in this game. So
literally, Havertz in the same game later on could have played the same ball to Sterling and chose not to.
Exactly. And I think he would have scored that one, the level of player he is and all. So I think he could be disappointed with that. But I think he played a decent game for his standards. A great assist to start us off. I hope to see him kick on as well. But as you both alluded to, the thing was with his weak foot. I would just hope him to see a bit more bite from him, because I think if we get to see a bit more rawness from Raheem Sterling, which we've seen before, I think he can begin to show the potential that he had when we signed him. So an 8 from me, a solid performance, and hope this is the start of his redemption, if you will, for us.
Hopefully. I mean, Chelsea all the way says you give him an 8 after all that trash talk. Yeah, it did, pile up a little bit, but it was more because it came from 2/3 different people rather than it being like, he did a couple of annoying things, but like he was still good today, right, Pies? What would you give him?
Yeah, no, it's just because we're all saying or have the same issue. Like, if you didn't notice it and didn't get annoyed by it, then fair enough. You just like winning 1 or 2-0, but I don't. There was times where I like going for 4, 5, 6 nils when we're
Hmm.
winning, and have the ability to attack. Don't
You
turn
at
and
least
pass
won
back.
3, right? When you're clearly dominating, you at
Yeah,
least won
just
3.
don't. There's no need. Like, when you're a winger, and I've seen Sterling, it also comes down to frustration because he can do it.
Mm.
He's got the pace, the ability, the raw ability to take on players. So then don't take the safe option, get the ball and pass it back or slow down or an attack. It's annoying. So, but yeah, despite all that, he did play well. He did get the assist. I don't think you can go lower than an 8. I wouldn't go any higher. It was a great assist. But yeah, it just seemed like he was like, I've kind of. His attitude was kind of like, I've had enough for today, 2-0, whatever. Like, no, go for more. Like, it's frustrating. I've seen him do it loads of times for us since he's joined as well. I don't know what it is. It's almost like I'm saying, like, yeah, I've kind of had enough for today, done my bit, move. Like, I don't understand. I'd love to ask him why he does it because it really pisses me off. I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. All right, then. We give him an 8. And we move on to Kai Havertz, who got a goal and assist today, because people might not have clocked. He did get the assist for Mason Mount's goal. Now, that wasn't the most special assist, and I don't think we should be raving all too much about that assist in itself. But still, got a goal, got an assist, good hold-up play, good, aerial battling, I guess. You know how you said earlier, Pais, that Thiago Silva had the most clearances. In the first half, actually, I read that Kai Havertz had the most clearances, which is a bit weird. They probably all came from corners. But yeah, so that was that in the first half. But yeah, I thought he played a good game. I still think he needs to be a little bit sharper. He also had that one other chance where he could have scored a second for himself and dragged a little bit short of the near post. But yeah, I thought it was a good performance. It's weird because I didn't actually think Mount was necessarily the super standout. So now that he sits here with the highest rating, because even though Kai scored and assisted, I wouldn't give him an 8.5. I would probably also give him an 8, if I'm honest. Just because I still think there's more to come. But I like how he played. I like how involved he got. The touches were good. The fighting was good. And he got a goal and assist. What more can you really ask for? But Pais, would you go higher than the 8? It's just so Mount isn't the only one with an 8.5, or would you agree with an 8 potentially?
For who?
Kai Havertz.
I don't. Again, I'm sorry to go on a rant, but I felt like his pressing today, especially in the second half, I thought he was another one who kind of just gave up, was a bit lazy. That kind of annoyed me. I don't know if anyone else noticed it, but there was a few times where I was just like, yeah, he's just being lazy again. So that annoyed me, but he did do quite well throughout the game. I think he was, he got 2 goals and assists. It's not all about goals and assists, but they did help us massively win. But yeah, it's a shame that the thing I noticed most, apart from his goals, me being annoyed at him being lazy. But yeah, I think he was unlucky to obviously be judged to obviously foul the defender, which then led to Pulisic's goal. But he looked more confident than recent times, I would say. Definitely had a bit more freedom to his game, I'd say, as well. It's a difficult one with Havertz because, even though I've said multiple times I've kind of given up on him, he still does have flashes. He still does have good games. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see if he can hold this position down. I mean, he's certainly the best we've got at the moment. Aubameyang looked absolutely woeful when he came on, even though he was on the left. But yeah, consistency is the big thing. Whenever Havertz has a good game, consistency the next game, please, because he is the player out of, I think, the player the most out of this whole Chelsea team. That if he had a good game one game, and then you said, right, who would have a bad game the next game if they started again? For me, I'd say Havertz. That's the problem with him for me.
I would probably agree with that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like Hubbard, as you know, and I'd still agree with that. But yeah, would you still give him the 8, or would you go 7.5 potentially? Rather than, even though I see what you're saying with the press, I think, a whole team pressed less, but because he is the first one, that's who you notice it most about. But when he decided to cut it back to Gallagher, who, yes, Gallagher could have done more with it, absolutely. But I still Sterling was completely, like he literally had 10 yards to himself. Just cross it. You were on your strong and weak foot, Kai. Just cross it to Sterling. Sterling definitely scores that. It's 3-0. Do you know what I mean? I don't understand why he did that.
I didn't know whether to mention that or not, because I think, Well, he was given offside, but was it for the first one or was it for the
No,
second?
for the second one. So he was
Okay,
on for
yeah.
the first.
Okay, well then, yeah. I mean, the first one. Yeah, I don't really know what to think about that. At the first instance, I was like, yeah, pass it across. But then I was thinking, okay, you're not De Bruyne. It might have been quite hard to curl it around. So, he did
Yeah.
play a good ball to Gallagher, but yeah, still doesn't really affect my rating. I'd probably go, for me, I'd go 7.5, which might seem quite harsh, but yeah, I would, even though it probably won't change anything.
We'll see. We'll see. Bertram, what about you? A 7.5 and an 8 for Kai Havertz. What did you make of him, and what would you rate him?
I would give him a 7.5 as well. I thought he was superb in the first half. But, as Pice alluded to earlier, because he came before me, there is just, I don't know if it's a general thing with our center forwards. It isn't with Armando Broja, but sometimes, especially, I remembered it a couple of times in the first half where there's a duel and he just doesn't go into it, and the duel I'm thinking it was on our left side in the first half where it was quite close to goal and he just didn't go in for it. And those type of things, they do really annoy me because he was standing right there. But I thought he played his role to not perfection but to an extremely high standard in the first half. Got his goal, got an assist, which I think we can't sleep on, and I think we can't abuse him for that. But I think something you can always criticize him for is his decision making, and I thought especially a player of his quality and price tag as well, if I'm honest, should maybe be able to at least try to make that pass to Sterling, because if he gets it off, it's almost a certain goal, and I would have hoped to see him at least try it when we're at that point in the game. But I thought, yeah, as the comment now has alluded to as well, his height does make a difference. I think it was definitely 3 times where he was the one to head it away. So
I
I
think he's
would
actually
give him a
really good at that,
7.5.
those front post clearing headers. I think he's actually really good.
He was, and his size does play a role. And I think especially when you look at who comes on instead of him, Aubameyang. I can't bear to watch any more of Aubameyang at our club right now.
Aubameyang had the whole World Cup off, and
better.
he looks like all he did was eat. Like, not that he gained any
Exactly.
weight, but he certainly doesn't look sharp. But like, what were you doing for the whole time?
No, but he just didn't look like he wanted to be there. Didn't go in duels, but it annoyed me more than it did with Havertz. And just yeah, but even on the counterattacks, he had one where he kind of messed it up and got tackled. It was a brilliant tackle from the Bournemouth player, to be fair. But to close off Havertz, I think a 7.5. Respect the fact that he scored and assisted. Can't really ask for more, but I would hope to see him kick on as well and not have the weekly bad game that I'm fearing will come on Sunday.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't this time around. I mean, I think it's a bit harsh that you guys gave him a 7.5 now, considering he got a goal and assist. But hey, it's absolutely fine. It's 0.5 difference. Not too big of a deal. I can't highlight it here, but I do actually. I guess I could copy it and I'll put it in the chat. Because Pice just put a quote from Graham Potter's press conference in it's a private chat here, and it is quite funny. I'll put it in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, so you can all read it there. He basically says, go back to Ostersund and go on the website in the first 18 months, and Potter was rubbish. I assume that's what it was. He meant that's what it said. So that is normal. There will be people in this room who think the same, but I can probably give you a lot of evidence to suggest otherwise. Thankfully, the owners have a similar opinion. I do find that quite funny. I did also, just to mention it, because Pice, you've mentioned it a few times, that he's not quite as involved in the sidelines. First of all, I thought he looked quite dapper today with like his little coat on and shit. But then he was right into it when we scored, some proper celebrations, not like, a nothingness. And then I also liked how involved he was when him and Mason Mount had a chat on the sideline. He was very like energetic and into it. So did you notice that as well? Because I know you mentioned it a few times in the past, Pies, that you want him to be, I don't know, just more energetic and stuff.
Well, I can only go off what I was watching on the Amazon, and yeah, I mean, the certain cutscenes he did look quite involved. Did look very, very cool. I do like his I was gonna say costumes, but just outfits, I guess. Just what he wears. I think he does look quite cool. It's quite smart. Prefer that than Tuchel's tracksuits, to be honest with you. But yeah, no, I kind of like when he does these quotes as well, because it's quite funny, but it shows he's got a bit of bite about him, and that's what I want. Like, I want him to respond to things. I don't want him to seem weak. So yeah, good on him. He's obviously a little bit. I don't know. Like, you don't really sort of say that unless you kind of. I'm not going to say you're affected by it, but he's definitely noticed the criticism, let's say, because otherwise you wouldn't really say that, would you?
Do you think it's the criticism that he received from the outside, or do you think it's just that he was asked that kind of question that triggered that kind of response? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it's true. I don't know whether he was asked it, but yeah, no, that's true. I wouldn't be able to say unless I listened to it.
First. Okay, that's fair. Just, let's round it out because I do actually want to touch on the Enzo Fernandez stuff at the very end, just quickly. So I guess Aspie's the main one that warrants a rating. Obviously, Chalobah coming on for Sterling. I know, like, we were a little bit on the ropes at the very end, but still, that seemed a very unnecessary substitution to me. But Aspie, what rating do we give him? The cross was nice. Could have had an assist. The drama queen moment where he was deciding to become an actor, I was not a fan of. And then he kept having, like, issues with their left back or left winger. Like, they kept, like...
Oh, that's please. Can you pull that up on the screen?
I was like, what's wrong with you? Like, we're 2-0 up. You're the captain. Can you bring some calmness? Don't lose your shit here.
Can you pull that up on the screen? It's the funniest video I've ever seen if I link it to you. So funny.
If it's off on the pitch, then I can't, because then Premier League will be right in the face.
It's so funny. Yeah, no, I'll link it to you later.
But what is the video? Explain it.
So he, like, almost like headbutts their left back. He just, like, goes
I saw it literally happen live. I was like, what are you doing?
It's so funny.
And then he runs off, throws his arms in the air.
Yeah, that's the video. It's fucking hilarious. It's like, what the hell?
It is quite funny. But what rating would you give him, man?
Aspie, like, probably like a 6, to be honest with you. I was 6.5 maybe for the cross. Nah, 6. It's got to be a 6.
Yeah, I'd give him a 6 as well. Bertrand, would you agree with the 6?
Well, to be honest, not to be a mood damper, I would give him a bit under average. I think I'd give him a 5.5, just because I was a bit annoyed that I kept having to hear their left back's name from my commentators all the time. I feel like they had a lot of attacks down his side during the second half, but I don't really know what we can expect from him at this point in this day and age. But other than funny clips, which, he kind of looked like he was lagging. It looked like a bad game of FIFA where he was trying to, like, square up to their left back, but then he'd gone, and then he just stood still. So other than the occasional funny clips, I suppose it was fine, but I'd give him a bit under average, if I'm honest.
Okay, that's fair. Do Gallagher and Aubameyang warrant a rating, do you think, guys? Or shall we just give them all an NA?
I think,
other than obviously the Gallagher situation where he got the cutback from Havertz and then his shot got blocked, I don't remember Gallagher doing anything. And other than Aubameyang, the one counter-attack where he got tackled, I don't remember him doing anything. So I'm not really sure what I would base ratings on, if I'm honest.
I wouldn't know either.
I mean, Aubameyang just looks so slow and just, I don't know, just...
Yeah, I know he's 33, but, like, he's not 39. Ronaldo at 33 was still fast as shit. So why is Aubameyang used to be literally potentially the fastest player in the world. Now, obviously, Mbappe wasn't a footballer then yet, and Mbappe is clearly faster than Aubameyang ever was. But in his peak, especially at Dortmund and also at Arsenal, Aubameyang was so fast. How? Where has it gone? I don't understand. Does money make you slower? Didn't think so, but anyway, here we are. All right, then. Let's finish it off with the rating for Graham Potter. Finally, some positive things to say about Potter, other than, of course, the subs. I do not understand, why did you bring Aubameyang on for Pulisic on the side? Why not Hutchinson? We were 2-0 up. He's miles better anyway. I didn't like that. And also the subs happened way too late. Now, of course, he did try to make them like 6 minutes earlier, but the ball never went out of play. And then when it did went out of play, it went out for a corner for Bournemouth. And obviously, ideally, you don't want to make subs when the opposition has a set piece for set piece defending and stuff. But yeah, just do the subs a little bit earlier. I understand one was forced early by Reece James. Maybe otherwise the first normal subs would have happened earlier. Who knows? But I still think, in the grand scheme of things, you can't really ask for much better from Graham Potter today. Now, of course, some people will say, but he played Reece James, he got injured, but I don't see that as a Potter fault. I'm not really sure how high to go, because in terms of what could he have done better, I don't think much. So from that makes it sound like I'm thinking 9 or 10, which I'm not. I'm going to give him an 8, but I don't really have an explanation why I'm not giving him a 9 or a 10, because other than the subs, I thought everything was pretty much perfect. But I will say an 8. Bertrand, what rating would you give Graham Potter?
I would give him an 8 as well. Pretty much the same logic. I do, however, I think concerning the substitution or lack thereof of like players like Hutchinson and players that would get their Premier League debut, for me it makes sense in a sense because a special player like Hutchinson, which I think we all believe he is, I think he warrants maybe a better debut, because at that point of time we were quite under the cosh from Bournemouth. So having a young player come in and have to track back and cover Kiefer more and just stuff you don't want. So I think it was all right not to like sub him on for his Premier League debut here.
But however, after an hour though, when we were still kind of in the game and flowing, and
yeah, I suppose, but I think maybe when we were more secure, because I didn't feel as secure throughout the game as I would have liked. Yeah. But but as you've said, not to be so negative. He put out a good team. It seems like they've worked on some attacking patterns, which I thought we saw. So I think an 8 is definitely fair, and he warrants the praise that we're going to give him for it. And I hope to see it again on Sunday. So an 8 for me.
Fair dues. Pys, are you going to agree and clutch? Yes, you did call it 2-0 yesterday, to be fair. Pick up yourself. But yeah, Pys, 8, do you agree? Would you go for something different?
I hate doing manager ratings because I feel like the points difference is like what am I actually putting them for? But I think around that area, you'd probably say, not the complete performance, dropped off in the second half, but I think as well, you got to take in the opposition. But one thing I would say is let's not act like we weren't all shitting ourselves before that.
Bournemouth were what, 4 points behind us before this game, so that's why it's they're not that bad. They only lost 1-0 to Newcastle, who backed to everyone. So they're not that bad.
Yeah, no, we did play well, and I think we also forced them to look pretty bad because we controlled pretty much the whole game. And I think big points for me today for going attacking, not going safe, going forward at the back. Trying something that you've been working on, clearly implementing in those weeks off that he had with the team, or some of the team at least. And I think you could see that with Cucurella's performance tonight as well. Just to mention him again, I think the time working with Graham Potter, I think he looked a lot better. So yeah, I'll go around the eight ballpark, should we say? Yeah. Actually, the only one thing I want to say is why he's not getting higher, potentially lower. Actually, is because I really think there's no excuse not to bring Hutchinson on in this game. And also, he had Lewis Hall warming up for 30 minutes, and then he didn't bring him on, which I thought was a bit odd. So yeah, I don't know what was going on there, but Gallagher hardly warmed up from what I was seeing, and he came on. So I was like, well,
and then he was stood there with his bloody coat for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
but that's not Potter's fault. That was because the ball just didn't.
No, yeah, I just think timing of subs. I think for me around the 60th minute mark, I was already sitting here thinking, at least get one attacking sub on. Again, that just goes for my.
But who knows? Maybe all of a sudden Hutchinson starts against Forest.
Yeah, that goes for my criticisms with Sterling and Havertz as well. Why I was annoyed, because I just didn't really feel like there was that intent to kill the game off there. I think that stemmed from Potter as well and his decisions.
I agree with that. Actually, I agree with that. But I still think he warrants a good rating today, and he does get that with his 8. Let's quickly. Well, we'll do a little round out talk in a minute. But Pys, I quickly want to talk about this rumor that has come out of Portugal today. And as I read somewhere that these are actually, for Portuguese news, pretty good. Now, you will know that much better than I do, but you can see the basically translation here by CFC Daily. Chelsea came to Lisbon to negotiate with Benfica the transfer of Enzo Fernandez, blah, 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 Correro da Manhã TV, found that the London club has already presented to Benfica the conditions under which it wants to finalise the deal. Placed on the table a proposal of more than 120 million euros. Number one, Pys, are you aware of the source? Is it actually a decent source? Because there's now been a few English sources as well that have now said that this is a thing, at least. Not necessarily that we've tabled a bid of 120 million, but still the interest is all of a sudden a serious thing. Number one, do you think it's true? And number two, what do you make of it?
This particular report, I don't think is true. I know Todd Bowley's a bit crazy, but I don't think we'd pay £100 million for him. Especially because they want Declan Rice in the summer. I think people need to, like you might as well go for Bellingham for me and Rice if you want to do that instead of Fernandes. But no, I don't think the
Is there
sources.
another report which I should highlight then?
What's that?
Because you said you're not sure about this report, that sounded like there was maybe another report on the same topic.
There's been a couple of reports tonight, but they're not really like for me. What I will say about Enzo Fernandez is I've been following, like I follow some Liverpool news accounts, some Man United news accounts. The last like 3, 4, 5 days, every day there's been, Man United are advancing for Enzo. Liverpool are now ready to bid. Like I don't know whether it's just the media trying to, there's been nothing from any sources that I think are tier 1 at the moment. So, I mean, Simon Phillips says, yeah, I mean, fair enough. I rate Simon. Simon's quite good. He gets some good info, but there's nothing from Ornstein. There's nothing from. I think even when it comes to Enzo, there's a really big Argentinian journalist who actually earlier said that we was or could be interested in Alexis McAllister. He hasn't tweeted anything about Enzo being, I think basically what I'm trying to say is if there was like a big deal, like a big breakthrough for an Argentina player, he would tweet it. So the fact he hasn't tweeted it, I've not said anything yet on it.
Okay. And then just rather than on the reliability, I guess, of the news, more so on what is actually being reported, what we would think about that. I don't know, to be honest, because he's clearly a very good player. I mean, he was already touted as a very good player before the World Cup. Then he played a really good World Cup, won the World Cup, won Young Player of the Tournament, even though, in my opinion, that should have been given to Guardiola personally. But still second best young player then by that logic. And can play multiple positions, can play as an 8, can play as a 6, has done both in a World Cup on the biggest stage. So, like, clearly a good player, but should we be doing this? Because you're only going to get him with his release clause, aren't you? Like, Benfica don't sell players for under the release clause, the superstars that they have. Like, yeah, Felix went for the release clause. David Nunes went for the release clause. If he's going to go, he's going to go for the release clause and nothing else, unless they let the contract run out, right? But I don't know. I feel like we should first get Rice. Imagine now we wasted all this time, the last 3-4 years on. Apparently we want Rice, but West Ham aren't letting him go yet, and then we spend 120 million on Enzo Fernandez. We're not going to play them. We're not going to buy them both. Like, that's just not in now and the summer or both of this. It's just not going to happen, I think. But what's your opinion on it, Pice? Like, in terms of him as a player, like, would you be interested?
I'd be interested, not for the price that's been mooted. Maybe if it was like.
Well, if it's the release clause, you just say no, basically.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think he's a great player, but again, like, I don't see us buying 2 very expensive midfielders. I think we'll get Rice, but I just don't see both. I mean, I know Bowley's very ambitious, but I don't know. I just can't see it. I think this is the media just playing about, but we'll see. The Portuguese media is one of the worst for transfers, by the way. They change things like. Like in an hour, they'll say Liverpool advance. Like, it's genuinely. I remember the Bruno Fernandes transfer to Man United. They changed their opinions every day, and even though I don't remember the source that Daily quoted, could be true, but I highly doubt it. Like, if a release clause has been activated, by the way, or something, I'm pretty sure it would be mainstream in like half hour.
A matter of minutes. Sure. Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Just look at the Gakpo stuff yesterday. Yeah, right. Like, if a release clause was activated, then the thing's happening. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah. But, Bertram, your thoughts, Enzo Fernandez? Now, I'll be perfectly honest, until the World Cup, I hadn't seen anything of him other than clips. But now I have seen a bit more of him. I do like him. He's a very good player. But the number is just a bit too much. Someone says they don't buy both Bun Rice, but Santiago, I mean, depends on where you're from and stuff and what kind of content you consume. But have you really watched enough of him to know that he's better than Rice? Like, have you seen that? I don't know. I just feel like we've been crying out for a player type like Rice, and we need to get that first, and then we can talk about other things. That's my view on it, Bertram. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm always wary about buying players, based on the performance of the World Cup. And I understand the fact that, he plays for Benfica and has played very well. I remember he almost single-handedly dismantled the Danish team in the Europa League qualifiers or something, Champions League qualifiers earlier in the season. and look good as he should. But I think for 120 million pounds, I would expect us to
I think it
buy
will be
someone
euros,
who
but
at least. Yeah, euros. Sorry, euros. I think I would expect us to buy someone a bit more mainstream, but in a sense that we haven't seen enough of Enzo Fernandez. When we watched him at the World Cup, he was fantastic. But if you're playing at a World Cup, you're playing at a different team. The culture is different. You might give more, have a tendency to give more because you're playing for your country, and like he was playing for Argentina, playing for Messi. So if it were me, I would definitely take that money, get a Rice, as we've been crying out for so long. I think that's the transfer in 2023 that make the most sense ever. Or even
I would love
someone
to
like
have
Bellingham.
both, but it's just unrealistic.
Exactly. And I think it's important to point out he's an extremely good player, and whichever club gets him will have an extremely good player, and the fans will have someone who will entertain them and hold down the midfield. But for us, I would much rather have someone like a Bellingham who's shown it over a longer period of time. So those are just my thoughts on it. I think almost as well for 120 million euros, unless you're like Real Madrid, if he comes to the Premier League, he will almost certainly bleach out a flop if he doesn't score like a hat trick in the first game. So whenever it comes down to us, I would always be wary about signing players for these large fees. So those are my thoughts on Enzo, but great player.
No, I think that's fair. And Dexter also makes an important point here. Absolutely, you're right. Rice is not like Enzo Fernandez. The fee might make it either or, but not their roles. No, I agree with that completely. I personally just feel we require a stylistic player like Rice more than we require one like Enzo. But again, I only saw him play for Argentina, so like maybe there is things to his game which I'm not as aware of, which he can do, and that makes it just different. Some updates. Pys, what are the updates?
Yep, Fabrizio's just done a video, so he's confirmed that Chelsea have held talks with George Mendes for João Felix. Nothing advanced yet. United and Chelsea are the big real possibilities. Arsenal focused on Shakhtar winger Mudryk, I think his name is. Enzo Fernandez, most likely destination is Premier League. His agent is coming to Europe soon to talk to clubs. Only way he leaves if someone quickly activates his release clause, which is 120 million euros. There you go.
Exactly. Someone in the chat said no one's going to pay that. Mate, someone paid 90 million for Darwin Núñez. Someone's definitely paying 120 for Enzo Fernandez. I'm 1,000,000%. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be us, but someone will. But yeah, Pys, you tweeted it obviously as well. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that one goes. I'm still not 100% sold on the idea of João Felix. People hyped up the loan thing yesterday after we were done streaming. I'm like, well, yeah, a loan with an option to buy it. We can try that one. But a loan with obligation to buy it? Nah. But then there's obviously different numbers flying about. Some are saying like 86 million, some are pounds, some are saying like 120, 30 million euros upwards. We are like, these are big price. Dexter, sorry, but he plays in Portugal, not La Liga. But anyway, it's just like, I don't know. I don't trust this whole João Felix thing. And during the World Cup, every time I watched him play, I just despise the guy. He might be great, but he's just a right old twat. Like he's like Neymar, just worse. Keeps diving and just flying about. And also the fact that he still has a Justin Bieber haircut from 2010. I'm like, come on, it's 2022. What are you doing, man? Like, the guy really gets under my skin a little bit, but he's still clearly a very talented player. I'm just not sure if it's quite for us. I don't know. Bertram, just quickly before we finish it off, thoughts on João Felix? Like, would you be interested in the slightest?
Yes, but definitely not for the 120 million release clause. I think that we would be extremely dumb to trigger that. I can't find a planet where that makes sense. I think for a loan, I would love to see it, also because I think there's a very talented player in there, someone we haven't seen because he's playing in La Liga and under Diego Simeone, which just screams, I just think of like Diego Godin whenever I think about Atletico and what that represents. But I think if we're able to get an obviously quality attacker for a loan, but not with an obligation to buy it, I think we go for it, because we saw today, if Havertz gets injured, then we have to watch Aubameyang, and my God, I really, really, really can't be bothered. So add some attacking
from
flair
that
under
point
an
of view,
attacking
I'm like, maybe
coach
fair.
and just let him prove himself. I think it would make sense, but hopefully not as something we're married to, as an obligation would prove. What do you guys think?
Pys, what do you think? And then you can share your Badiashile update as well.
Yeah, I mean, I do rate Felix. I'm a sucker for, small, silky ballers, dribblers.
I rate him too. Like, don't get me wrong, I rate him as well.
Yeah, I'm a real sucker for type of players like Felix. I really am. But I think he's just also like he's far better creatively than anything we could ever imagine at the moment at Chelsea, than anything we have. So I think the only thing is with Felix is like it's another one like Nkunku, like Havertz. It's like, right, where do these all fit? Who plays where? It's that type of
Can't
thing.
have
And
three
also,
9.5 playing at the same time, can we?
yeah, like it's just. But I mean, if Potter can make it work, I mean, wow, we will have some serious attacking, fluidity. So yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of him. I just don't want us to like pay and like if it's on loan, don't agree to an obligation. It's got to be an option. Because with an option, you can actually, even though they might say, okay, the option's 80, 90 million, okay, but you can then actually go and renegotiate that. You know what I mean? If you wanted to
Either
buy.
renegotiate or at least make the decision after you've seen him play for us for 5
Yeah,
months.
exactly. Right? Like with an obligation, you're forced to sign him. So I don't want us doing that. I want us to. I think I'd be a fan with a loan plus option. And also on Badiashile, Fabrizio said, here we go soon. Badiashile will join Chelsea first team immediately with Graham Potter. So yeah.
Fair enough. Bertram, just quickly, thoughts on Badiashile at all? Like, do you like that? We were sat here yesterday. Well, I don't really understand why we can't just use Colwell, but maybe he's better than I'm aware of, I guess.
Yeah, well, I hadn't heard too much on him other than the usual. There's a French censor back, and you get hyped. But then I watched Euro Experts video, and then it suddenly made sense. It's a smart signing. It's the type of signing we'd make. I like him more than Gvardiol. For 30-35 million pounds or euros
with the price included. Yeah,
exactly. So I think it's a good sign. I also really can't understand why Colwell isn't an option. I hope he is from next season as well, because I watched him against Southampton. I thought he was excellent, especially because he's 19 and proving himself after not starting. But I think we do need some center backs, and we have to lay some trust into the new system. I think we're all on board with the board's new direction of trying to do it or trying to make signings out of stats. So I think we need just to trust it. I think he has some good stats and see what the board has to offer. I think it's pretty much one of our first signings we have under this new marketing team. So excited to see what he brings, and happy to see him link up with the first team as well now. Then it's always exciting, when we're signing Fofana and he goes out on loan. It's always like, that's a new signing, but you have to wait to see him for us. So I'm excited to see him play. 6'4".
6'4", yeah. And I mean, hey, with the amount of minutes that Thiago Silva keeps on playing, as much as he always does it well, this is too risky. Like, we can't keep relying on a 38-year-old to play basically every game. So, like, from that point of view, yeah, we do need a centre back. And it's also good to
help him lead in as well, right?
Go on. Second.
I'm sorry for it. Well, he will help him bleed in as well. So I think it's another element of having him close to the club as well. Signed now that Thiago Silva speaking French will help him bleed into the squad.
I mean, at this point, our bloody entire back line is French speaking. Obviously, Thiago speaks French, Fofana, Koulibaly, now Badiashile. Now, I guess Mendy doesn't play anymore, but Mendy, of course, French speaking. But yeah, I think, ladies and gentlemen, it's about time we round this one out. What a day, eh? What a day. Yeah, Felix news, Badiashile is apparently about to happen. Apparently, somewhat apparently, this whole Enzo Fernandez thing. Chelsea win a game, play good football, score good goals. Reece James is also injured, and God knows what the situation is there. So that is a whole nightmare in and of itself. So the only thing I want to know, Mr. Fabrizio Romano, why are we not linked 20 right backs yet? Like, that's the one thing I need to know. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, again, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe. That'd be massively appreciated. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers. Smash the like button as well, because it really helps me out. Spread these streams and videos out to more people. Just one click of a button that doesn't cost you any money or any time. So on your way out, please do hit the like button and hit the notification bell button as well, and select all so you don't miss any future streams. Please do, of course, also check out Pys' website, chelseafc365.com. Link is, as always, down in the description. Check out his Twitter. Check out Bertram's Twitter as well. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we'll see you next time.